Kings and Queens. We have Melanie Slane with EquaSion. And we have Father Chris Slane, who's been working here in Evanston. Exactly. All right, Mitch, we'll start with you. Would you mind sharing about your organization, about your history, and why you're so passionate, and maybe your thoughts on gun violence here in Cincinnati?
Hello, everybody. How everybody doing? Is this on? I don't really need it, do I? I don't really need this on thing. Okay, and I've been in this fight for a very, very long time. It started out by me just being somebody in the neighborhood, and there was a lot of shooting and killing happening in my neighborhood on the streets, people getting shot and killed, whatever. So what I decided to do was just try to do something. You know, you're going to hear over the many years, man, when you're out here doing this work, a lot of people say you're doing that, you're wasting your time, you know, but I say, don't sit back and do nothing, refuse to do nothing. So it's an honor for me to be in a room with a lot of you people, you know, but, so at that point I started doing that in the streets, and people in the city heard about the work that I was doing. And then, must have been 2007. They approached me about coming to work for this program called the Service Program. Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence. And I was out, at that time it wasn't even really established. So we came in and we built that thing up. We were going to the communities and try to offer people jobs or what have you to try to get them to turn their life around or whatever. Well, in 2010, that whole thing fell through. It's still around a little bit, but it's not as effective as it was back then. But Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence, CIRV. By me being out in the streets, I get calls 2, 3, 4, 5:30 in the morning when there's been a shooting. Seen a lot of pain. I can sit here and tell you so many horror stories, but it's been a lot of successful stories, as if a lot of people, like when I got the phone call from Ms. Alice. And so I jumped on the opportunity. Every time I get an opportunity to try to get people to get more and more involved in this fight that we got, because it's gonna take all of us. We're all in this thing together. It don't matter if you're Democratic, Republican, black, white, rich, or poor. This effort that we've got to get into is going to take all of us, right? So we got to fight against the things that keep us apart and embrace the things that keep us together. So what I mean by that is when you got 8, 9-year-old kids getting shot, what else is it more important? And they in school. Now, I see it on the streets, you know, but it don't get that much attention like that. You know, I've seen 18-month-old shot in the forehead, and well-seasoned homicide detective of Cincinnati Police was down on Pendleton. Mr. Yates probably remember that. And well-seasoned homicide detectives come out the house crying. What else is it gonna make you to come off the sidelines and get involved in this work, regardless of all the other stuff that's going on? So many years of that, when I'm out there talking to these young guys with pistols, thinking it's something slick to do, thinking it's something cool to do. You see it right, you hear it on the news all the time. They're making the wrong decisions. So we got to get in here and try to curb that thing. So I'm talking to a group of guys, because I go right where it's at. Everybody can't do that, but I got to go right where the problem is at. And I'm talking to these young guys. So you might have a 12 or 14-year-old say, Mr. Mitch, I want a chance, because I'm working for the Cincinnati Works Phoenix Program. Our thing started 18 and up. So if you're 18 and you want to weigh out this here thing, and you're a potential shooter, I'm talking if you're carrying that thing and there's a possibility that you might use that thing one night, I got all the love in the world for you. Come here, I could get you some help. You know, I can even go to court with you for certain little things, right? I'm with you, we hand to hand. But if you done pulled that trigger, and you hear a lot of people say, I'm a shooter, I'm a shooter, I'm a shooter. So what is a shooter? If you actually done shot somebody, killed them, or wound them, I can't help you. Because I got 100 mothers over here that have lost kids to this nonsense. So the people as a charge need to see you. And once you clarify your heart, you want to come and make that change, I can help you then when you come home. So we got that type program dealt with as well. But if you out there right now and you walk in the streets, you done shot 2, 3 people, I can't help you. Because if I start getting into that, I got families. And so if somebody turn a blind eye to that, it's going to turn to a retaliation thing. So, Mitch, you helping that guy, I'm watching these mothers. They done lost loved ones, don't even know who did it, who killed. They might be on a bus with them. That's what we living with. So that made me start the Saving Our Youth Kings and Queens program, because that youth holding his hand up saying, I want some help. So now I got to try to find jobs for them, get them in school, trade school, bring in mentors, put some positive role models in front of them. We had a thing the other day called Heroes from the Hood. We had firefighters, law enforcement, judges, get them in the same room. And we talked to them and let them see. These people have been through the struggle too. And not only that, they want to reach a hand out to you and pull you in and show you how to be a firefighter. Show you how to do, we putting it right up in the room, right in their face. So when we take a break in that room, we got 13, 14, 15 guys from juvenile. I all have caught cases for carrying guns, so I got probation parole officers in the room. So when we take that break, I got a guy did 20, he went to jail when he was 17, got out when he was 36. So when he tells a story about how he went to jail, how he made a mistake, and he busted out crying. These young boys, they didn't go to the doctors and the lawyers and the police to try to learn how to do that. They went to the guy that been in the penitentiary. It's a badge of honor. They feel it till they get there. Because I go and sign that to them, I see so many young folks in there wanting to come home, but their mindset done changed and it's too late. So that's why this prevention part of this here thing is so important. We got to try to touch them before they get in trouble. I'm out there, I got a young guy laying on the street, Timberland boots in the air, police trying to bring him back, blood on their arms. And I'm out there trying to be the support for the mother or the family, whatever. Number one, to stop retaliation. But other than that, this young mother having never buried her child before. So we got to have them connected with funeral homes to get them help. So there's a lot of different things that we do with this program. So the bridge with me and law enforcement is a special thing to me. And I'm going to tell you why. A lot of times I talk, I have to tell stories. And my phone go off, somebody shot up on Reading Road and Ridgeway. I'm 3 minutes away. I'm up there. So at this time, the paramedics just now getting there, police officer walk up to me, and he said, Mitch, we tried to save you, man. He said, but the crowd around him was around him, and they was trying to save him, putting T-shirts and towels on his head and try to save this young man. Now, this is a white police officer. And this like right at the moment. This ain't no cartoon stuff, this is real. Me and him look at each other like this. And he said, Mitch, tried to save that guy, man. We tried to, we couldn't get to him. When I looked in that police officer's face, I didn't see hatred. I didn't see racism. I saw a human being caring about another human being. And I've seen this so many times that I wish I could put that in a bottle. And when I meet with a mother after they have lost their child to gun violence, and I say, listen, if I could tell you one thing, that officer, I wish I could show you how they tried to save your baby. Every time I get an opportunity to tell that story, I do. Because sometimes you hear so many horror stories, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them out there. But I'm on the front lines. This weekend, it was six shootings throughout the city of Cincinnati, not counting when I go to Springfield Township or Forest Park or out on Compton Road, Mount Healthy. Because it's happening everywhere. So I'm just thankful to have folks that's taking an interest in this challenge. Like I said, it don't matter about what your Democrat Republican thing is. It don't matter about your race. We all understand. We got to fight through the things that tear us apart. So I could go on and on and on about different stories, but I didn't know what was going to happen here, how many people was going here, but I got a few flyers up here that I could leave with you guys. I'll go out to the car and leave a few more. But yeah, thank you for, I heard you mention about the gun buyback. We did gun buybacks in different areas. We did one in Western Hills up by the Fair Apartments. We passed out $100 gift cards, Target, Walmart, stuff like that. I think we got 180-some guns. We had a line. We got 180-some. This been years ago. But then we did them in different places where we got, I think the lowest amount that we ever got was maybe 47 or 37 guns like that. But through that, you're going to get a whole lot of that gun buybacks don't work. But I've had mothers come with a bread bag where they took a gun out of their daughter's book bag carrying for a boyfriend, right? And so then we had a police department. They'd come, when we get the bags together, they'd take them to the police station up at District 3, and then they'd do the number thing or whatever that they do with them. So I just want to say that we've done that before, and if you guys continue to want to go that way, I could tell you how we set that up, how people come in. You got to have a person that know about guns to make sure that it's got a firing pin in it. I'm trying to tell you because we had people coming there with a starter gun, like, I mean, trying to get that gift card, you know. So you have to have somebody really know if it's a working firearm or whatever, you know. So then something else on here that you mentioned that we had, you know, we've been in this such a while. We did them in downtown, did them in Lincoln Heights. We tried to go in every little area to try to get them. But guns are so plentiful now. So plentiful. So the attraction of the gun is that, well, I ain't gonna say we trying to do. So if there's a box of guns over here and they shiny and they look real good, and I used to hunt stuff back when I was a young man as well. And I don't have a problem with that, you know, collecting guns or do whatever you do with them or whatever. But I've seen so much what that gun really do. So I need to be able to, I got a classroom full of kids, a box of guns over there. I need you to have enough withdrawal in yourself. That's not interest. What's your interest to carrying this gun? That's death and destruction. So I need you not to want to pick up that gun because they're so plentiful. I can't fight with the NRA or whatever. I'm just a guy from the street. So I gotta try to teach my kids that there's nothing good gonna come out of that. So Cincinnati Works Phoenix Program, 18 and up, we help get them jobs, get them in school, and we mentor them as a lifetime thing. We keep working with you. So when you fall down, we right there to hold your hand and pick you back up. Saving our youth kings and queens, I got outreach guys and mentors that work with me to actually go out in the street and talk to folks as well. That's 14 and down. We had a 12-year-old kid shot with AK-47 last night up in Baltimore, Maryland. 12 years old. So now you got the ripple effect. The kids that's doing the shooting, that's going to jail for the rest of their life, family. Yes. Cincinnati Police. I work close with the police department. They'll come and get it. They come and get them. Put them in the bag. They tag them. The people the professional people that we had to check the gun when they come through, You come in through this door, you come down, you got somebody right here, check, make sure the gun is okay. Then you go to the next room, you get the okay, go through and you get your gift card. So when we, at the end of the day, now the police ain't out there while we doing it, because them guys ain't gonna come over there. They see the police, they ain't bringing no gun over there. You see them laying back, making sure everything is, you know, clear, but we get the gun, we call the police department. They come and pick it up. Now, I don't know.
They break them down into parts and they recycle what they can and they melt it down.
Yeah.
They melt it down from that.
But I was wondering if that's not feeding them already, because people want guns and they
Well,
buy them. Is that not, if they're,
They don't resell them.
I can't see them doing
but,
that.
I mean, if they're missing the gun because it was stolen and then, they go out and buy a new one again, and that's feeding the NRA.
I'm gonna tell you something. There's been a few times where we give a gun back at, it be guys out there that own gun stores and stuff, trying to buy the gun before the gun get to us to turn in. So you're exactly right. It was a guy in Louisville, Kentucky some years back, and I was working with Christ Cathedral. And what this guy would do was get the guns and melt them down and make them out of sewer tops, them sewer on the street that you ride over out there. So it's a lot of different things like that. Yes, turn them into that, you know, break them down and do that. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know, but for me, it's just inspiring and encouraging for me to see so many people want to get involved and do something about this. It's a horrible thing going on there right now. You know, we had a thing when I was growing up, then we would say, it's a call, mama call. You know, when people, after you out there and you get in a fight in the neighborhood and they say, mama, people call mama, you just get on out the way. It's time for you to go wherever you got to go. That's what time it is right now. You know, that's what time it is. When you're dealing with all kinds of situations you're dealing with, when you was growing up, coming up, you put that mama call out, she came outside, that house dress on. She, hey, look, she been over the hot stove all day. Whatever nonsense is going on, it's time for you to get on out the way. Yeah, so, look, so that's it for me. Y'all got any more questions? Anything about any one of the programs or? Yes.
How are we incentivizing groups to do better on this? Because I understand, from what you said, the police take the guns and they clear them, but any sort of like crime associated with them.
They do that.
Yeah, so how are we incentivizing criminals from using guns instead of just law-abiding citizens turning them?
They do that too. But then a lot of times people be scared to turn in that gun, you know. But like I said, we did it years and years ago. I mean, I can show other people how we did it or whatever, but we kind of got away from that because a lot of different stuff going behind that stuff. So yeah.
You can actually surrender a weapon to
Yep.
the police department without questions asked.
Oh, you can?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing about your organization. If you have any more questions for Mitch, after the event, we can absolutely stick around and answer questions and things like that. About the gun buyback program, there's going to be a lot of questions. We have a lot of nuance and a lot of details to talk about. So we'll answer those questions if we decide that's what we want to do in the discussion section. So now I'd like to turn it over to Father Chris Slane to talk about Evanston Community Council and the work that he's been doing here in Evanston and his perspective on gun violence.
Thank you. Yeah, so we obviously we've had some gun violence issues in the Evanston community over the past, decades. But it's been especially bad the last 2 years. We've had some very public shootings in the neighborhood, and from my perspective, so I do a lot with trauma competency, trauma informed care kind of stuff. That's where my kind of breadbasket is. We're trying to work on youth programming, especially for the neighborhood. We had a meeting with the executive council for Evanston yesterday, and talking about doing action steps to reduce violence and create more felt safety in the neighborhood. And what that looks like, they're all, gun buyback programs are amazing. I think they're amazing. To your point, Irene, does it support the NRA? I don't know, but anytime that we can get a gun out of a 12-year-old's hand, I just think that we have to take that opportunity. And because they're not buying the gun, right? They're getting it from somebody who took it out of a car that was unlocked at night, or from somebody gives them a gun on the street and says, "Here, take this." From my perspective, we need to start from the very bottom, like as they're growing up. We have to make the difference, the cultural difference. As Mitch said, we have to make that cultural shift so that they don't want to actually be anywhere associated with guns. I think a little bit of the way that they did the advertising against cigarettes probably 10 years ago, and they had all those advertising, and like kids, like most kids, I mean, are not, they look at cigarettes now and they're like, oh, gross. And we need that same kind of thing to happen with guns. We need kids to be like, no way. And so one of the things we do with trauma is understanding how trauma affects a kid. Chronic trauma, and there's the chronic and persistent trauma that kids grow up with. And that leads into how their felt safety. Because a kid who has hope, who feels safe, is not going to reach out and try and find a gun because they don't need that felt safe. They don't need that safety that the gun provides or the power that the gun provides, because they feel safe. And it only takes one adult, one positive, safe adult in a kid's life that is trauma-informed in order for them to grow up and to do something and feel like, I could do something with my life. And it takes one adult to be safe for them and to show them that pathway. And you know, to Mitch's point, we talk about when you don't feel safe, and you're in survival mode, you're in fear mode, and you're reaching out for anything, there are kind of 4 ways that people deal with a lack of felt safety. And I think we know most of them. One of is, you've heard fight or flight, right? So you get into a dangerous situation, some people fight and some people run. Well, then they added to that, some people freeze, right? Now they're talking about a 4th one. And the 4th one is called fawning. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And this is especially prevalent when we're talking about gun violence. Because what fawning is I look at the person standing on the block who has a gun and who sells drugs and who's making money and seems to be successful and seems to be safe, and I copycat them because that's where I see safety. And so when you see a kid, they'll ask kids, why did you shoot that? Why did you shoot that other kid? If they have an answer, they usually don't. They'll usually say, I don't know. That's usually the answer. I don't know. And when you're fawning, you don't know, because you can't express the fact that actually I was 12 and that 18-year-old or that 26-year-old or that 34-year-old felt like a safe person to me. And so I clung to that. I attached myself to that person. And I mimicked what makes them safe. And so when we're dealing with these kind of attachment, how do we deal with attachment? How does a kid feel attached? How do they feel safe? How do we help them process their trauma, especially secondary trauma, all the shootings that happen, especially school shootings? You hear about a school shooting in Florida, you hear about you hear about the bank shooting that happened in Louisville. All of us experience that as secondary trauma. Kids that actually go to a school or see it happen experience primary trauma. If you don't deal with that within the first 72 hours, then it stays with you. And it will still stay with you anyway, but you can look at it and you can process it with safe people, so that it's not a trauma that hinders you. So we're all dealing with this all the time, but we don't ever go in, we don't have anything in the schools, we don't have anything at our rec centers, we don't have anything in our sports teams, we don't have all these things. We don't have ways that people are talking about trauma and talking about how it leads to bad behavior. Because a lot of times when kids are misbehaving, it's actually a fear response, or it's a lack of attachment response, it's a lack of felt safety response, and we deal with it. That's just a bad kid. If you tell a kid over and over that they're a bad kid because of their behavior, and you try and tough love them out of that behavior, you're actually re-inflicting trauma. You're adding to their chronic trauma. So what we're doing, and we're starting a partnership with the Evanston Bulldogs, which is a big sports organization. They do youth sports from ages 3 to 14. And we're setting a date right now so that I, along with a couple of other people who are doing trauma-informed care, can train their coaches to be trauma-informed coaches. So that's where we're starting. Hoping that maybe we can start talking to some of the schools in the area, talk to the CRC, and see if we can get this kind of thing going. Because if we can get the kids realizing what their trauma is, and get the teachers to realize how kids act when they're traumatized, and get some of the teachers to recognize their own trauma and when they're dysregulated, so that they can treat the kids the way they need to be treated, and get some of this tough love garbage out of the system, then we're going to be able to deal with that trauma from the ground up. Yeah.
I just recently hit a location in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and trauma and grief counseling was one of the rooms
Mm-hmm.
that we want to have there.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to get that type of service you're speaking about,
Mm-hmm.
is it just going to be available for the people in Evanston, or you guys willing to travel or come and help? Because, it's all these different communities. A lot of our kids have actually seen a shooting where a body laying out there, they cover it with the sheet,
Yep.
and then they have to go to school.
Yep.
I remember California Wine Village shooting at about 3:30, 4:30 in the morning. So
Mm-hmm.
homicide was out there all night. So these kids have to go to school yet. It's one way in, one way out. So they lift the yellow tape up, and then they walk by and get two bodies in the car.
Mm-hmm.
They covered up with the streets of the hood.
Yep.
So it scars a child. So this
That proximity. And Lincoln Heights too, they're moving the gun range now, but the Cincinnati police had a gun range right next to Lincoln Heights where you could we went to there's a apartment complex, and Carlton, what's Carlton's last name? Why I'm gonna blank on but Carlton's an advocate from Lincoln Heights, and he was working on getting the gun range moved. Because you sit in those apartment complexes and you sit on the basketball courts and you just hear click, click, click. You hear gunfire all day, every day. What does that do to you as a person? Does that increase your felt safety, or does it decrease your felt safety?
Especially if you've been a soldier in a war zone.
Yeah.
Veterans.
Yeah. So veterans, but think about a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old growing up in a neighborhood where they just hear gunfire all day, every day. It's
That one little kid said to us, like, we just wake up and we listen to the police scream kill.
yeah. So the answer to your question is I did the trauma competency training with it's called Back to Back Ministries and Trauma Free World. Michael Sickles. Yeah. So they're doing trainings all over the city for people from all different walks of life. The one that I did, I think we had 50 people getting trained. And so yeah, they're great. They're happy to train people in communities. That's kind of where we started, and I'm happy to help what I can. Yeah. 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 That's right. Yep.
It's right on what you're talking about, but another thing is we just need to open up, we can start selling gun constantly like they do throughout the city.
Right. Because like you know, so like you know, like the gun violence that we've had in Evanston, actually it's not kids in Evanston shooting kids in Evanston. It's kids from OTR coming and having a beef that started online and coming and shooting kids in Evanston, and then kids in Evanston having a beef with the kids in OTR and going to OTR and shooting people. So it doesn't, the internet doesn't distinguish between neighborhoods. So everything that we do needs to be, you're right, it needs to be holistic. But yeah, I think we can lobby the Cincinnati Public Schools to make sure that that the teachers are being trained in trauma-informed care, because you know the school to prison pipeline, the basis of that is telling kids that they're bad, not good enough, and they internalize that message because of behavior problems, because they're coming from trauma situations, and then they internalize that message for 18 years and they go straight to prison. Yeah, Tanya.
Working with the Cincinnati Public Schools, I'm beginning to realize a lot of the teachers are traumatized.
Everybody's traumatized. I have trauma from when I grew up.
Because the kids are traumatized, and the teachers start traumatizing the kids.
Yeah. It's a cycle. And it takes somebody to break the cycle. And as adults, we're the ones that are equipped, because our frontal lobes are connected to the rest of our brains, to be able to process our trauma so that we are not adding to the trauma of the kids.
And that's a nice segue for handing it over to Melanie Slane. Melanie, yes, exactly, is with Church of the Redeemer over in Hyde Park. And she is doing really good work with EquaSion, which is an inter-community faith coalition, and the Ohio Council of Churches. Melanie, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Well, it's so good to see you guys here today. It really gives me hope to see people gathering on a Sunday afternoon. You could be doing so many other things, to come together and to talk about this, because, I mean, Ms. Tanya, like you were saying, like there is trauma in our nation. I mean, it is sad to count the times I've woken up in the middle of the night thinking about how safe are my children at school. What do I do if someone comes into my worship sanctuary with a gun? That's not the kind of world we want to live in. And I think we've become very desensitized to it. I honestly, like, when you live in that space, you don't think about how big of a problem it is until you travel outside of that space. We were visiting with some of our friends who live in Wales, and we were talking about this issue with them, and they said, we don't think about that. We never worry that someone's going to bring a gun to our kids' school. We don't ever think about that. And I thought, what? And I think about it several times a week. So we have a problem. We have a gun problem. Wow, this conversation, I think, it touches so many different facets and levels, like absolutely with fear-based violence and trauma is a huge piece of it. I mean, children do need to learn, in my opinion, from the youngest age that guns are for death and destruction, that they are meant to hurt and kill animals or people. And we just need to be really honest with little children about that, and have that, let the truth out so that kids don't think it's a fun toy that is no big deal at all, and all my friends have them. We desensitize children from the youngest age. Some of the work that I specifically do here in Cincinnati and in the state
That is a very good segue to our next topic. Thank you guys so much for being here, for all the work you do. You know, we're all kind of just getting on board. And so whatever we can do to help you and your organizations, we will support you. Yeah. Thank you. So I did have us ending at 3, and it is about 10 minutes until 3. So anyone who needs to leave clearly can. I will kind of give an overview of the 3 ideas. These ideas, I just wanted to be able to take action. I did not want to come together and just keep talking for 6 months, right? Like, oh, we have all these ideas and nothing ever goes forward. So these are ideas that I'm bringing from the Ohio Ending Gun Violence Task Force, but if there are others, absolutely, we should all be collaborating and participating and bringing that to the table. Since we only have 10 minutes until till 3 o'clock, I am going to run through the 3 ideas just kind of briefly. Then I'll open it up to discussion about what we might want to do. Do we want to go forward with it? Do we not? Are you guys like not on board? You're like, I want to get out of here. This is not for me. Whatever. And we can bring that up and talk about it as a community. So the 3 ideas that I'd like to present are to host an event on National Trauma Survivors Day, which is May 17th. So Father Chris and the food pantry here at St. Andrews and Taste of Grace Ministries, which is a nonprofit here in Cincinnati run by Kathy Neely and her friend Angie, is working together to create a community dinner. So it's going to be in the parking lot at St. Andrews. We're going to give out free food. Taste of Grace does it every single month on the first Saturday of the month downtown. And it's just another place to do it and a different partner to work with, really. And so if we did something on the 17th, we probably could host it here. That's what we're kind of working towards here at the church. And I think that could be an easy event that we all work on for our first one. It's kind of a softball, really, because it's something that we've already done before. It's in our wheelhouse. And it's just more like, how do we add on programming to support trauma survivors here in Evanston or in Cincinnati? You know, we'd have to decide who we want to target for the marketing. The next one is sharing tools and information to reduce youth access to firearms. That's something we can individually do on our own in our own communities, in our own networks, churches, schools, community centers, etc. But hosting a gun lock distribution event, for example, might be something we consider. So they're already available at police districts and the Hamilton County Sheriff's offices. They are able to be used on any handgun. So usually you have to go into a police office, a police station. There might be people who are uncomfortable with that. And so at an event, maybe we host free gun lock distributions. And the last one is reducing the number of guns in Cincinnati. So recently it was published that child gun fatalities increased 50% between 2019 and 2021. During that same period of time, the number of guns per household increased 114%. So every time a gun is purchased and more owners have guns, there is more risk because not every gun owner knows about gun locks or safe firearm storage. There might be people who, like has been said, they're youth who have access to guns, who maybe shouldn't, and they don't know what to do with it. If they give it to their parent, they're going to get in trouble. If they go to a police station, they're going to feel like they're going to get in trouble, right? Like, how do they get rid of that when they shouldn't have it in the first place. And those are the kinds of events we can host, right? To create that safe place and to turn swords into plowshares. So those are the 3 ideas that I proposed, and I'd like to open the floor. I will come around and give you the microphone if you'd like to speak. Does anyone have any thoughts on any of those 3? Yeah, Ellie? I know, the masks are so hard with glasses. Thank you so much.
Allison, when you opened up the meeting, you talked about togetherness. And to me, that's the operative word, togetherness. Being in Cincinnati Public Schools and an administrator for a number of years, I was introduced to gun violence in the early 80s and 90s. Identifying where guns are not, where guns are coming from, and where they are, to me, is something that can be accomplished. And I talked this over with law enforcement. If we here in Cincinnati can identify a target that's 3,000 miles away from here, we can identify where these guns are coming from. And that's crap that we said that they say that we can do that. My point is togetherness. Communication is the top of that list. School, community, courts, law enforcement, politicians, and churches, which should be first. If we can bring these groups together, and we can, I think that we can make a dent in probably the guns that are floating around in this nation. And there are many. And I'm not convinced that we can't do something about this. We can.
Yes, we can.
If we just bring the resources together and say, this is what we're going to do. When we have a governor, DeWine, who signs a bill and puts a gun in anyone's hand who wants it, what does that tell you? So we've got to take the politics out of this, and I think if that's a big step, and I think if we do that, we can make we can come to some type of solution here. Not solution, but we can definitely make a dent in terms of getting the guns out of the hands of kids. One other thing, and I'm going to pass it on to you. In the 80s, as principal, and assistant principal, gangs became a very big thing here in Cincinnati. One of the things that getting into a gang, becoming a gang member, you had to shoot somebody. This is what's going on. I listened to the thing that happened up in Woodbury last week. That was gang related. If I want to come into your gang, one of the things I need to do is those are the two. Guns and drugs. And until we get the politics out of it, it's going to stay, it's going to get worse.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so today we came together to collaborate, to meet each other for the first time, to grab people and get everyone on board, the same train going in the same direction, right? So I really, from this meeting, want to see who is interested in still participating. So as you, don't leave now, please don't leave now. As you leave, there is a paper outside on the table for you to put your name and phone number and email address so that we can keep you updated on anything that's happening. And I'm going to start a group me so that we can chat over text, and everyone will be able to see the chat messages. It won't be a group text where you'll get 20 in a day like my aunts do. Don't worry about that. It won't be annoying. But I do want to see what we want to do to move forward. So I proposed 3 ideas. The first one's kind of fast, right? Yeah. May 17, we'd have to work like real fast to get that done. But we all have connections. I believe it's absolutely doable. There's already a community event happening on that day, probably, like here. And it's more just, do we want to work together to support trauma? Is that something we want to put effort into, right? We're all super busy. Like, I am like up to here with how much I have to do, right? So I want to be efficient with our time and our passions, without what our talents are. So that's the first one. The second one is to share the tools and information. So it's hosting gun lock distribution events, campaigning for firearm safety. And the third one is reducing the number of guns in Cincinnati by hosting a gun buyback program. I think we could easily do all 3 in the next year. Super easy. The first one's kind of a softball. It would just be like, hey, we're gonna like work together for the first time and do something and see how it goes and learn from each other, right? See what ideas we have, what connections we can make, how can we come together and amplify people who are already doing the work, get more people involved, and support trauma survivors here in our city, which from teachers to kids to parents, I mean, you name it, right? We're all there. And then I think the gun buyback program has a lot of questions regarding it. I think that would probably be a little more detailed, but clearly Mitch Morris is on board with us, who has a lot of experience and a lot of connections. So we can absolutely ask tons of questions. We can make sure it fits our vision, right? And it hits the places where we need it to do, you know, where it's going to be most efficient and effective. So how do you guys feel about working together for our first action as a team, hosting an event on May 17? So if you're for it, raise your hand. Cool. Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I don't have down your hand.
Yeah.
But I also agree that we have an issue with a broken home.
Mm.
And so we not only need to include the high schools, but you need to get your elementary schools, and you need to get your preschools and your daycares, because that's where the mothers are.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to get them on board, even if it means, you know, I'm thinking of you know, some maybe agencies such as Women Helping Women. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we need to get that kind of thing out here for them, because that's where some of the trauma starts.
Exactly. Right.
You know, and just being in education in CPS and then over the river in Covington and Newport, I see that. And it is important for teachers to have the arsenal of what to do for these babies, how to recognize what to do, and how to help the family. Because once you get those persons involved in some of those moms' thoughts, they do come around. But you've got to do it early on. So, you know, I like the high school part, but I think we need to go a little deeper.
Okay.
And maybe it may not be for this one for May 17th, but I don't see why we couldn't. I mean, it's a matter of putting flyers out and inviting the public to come. You know, Ellie and I live in the Paddock Hills Avondale area, and just the other night, we just heard screams, and it was cars all jacked up in my yard. And then sure enough, it was that shooting on Reading Road. Somewhere, we've got to get the broken home fixed. Because it over 40-something years being in education, I see it dwindling down. And the babies are hurting. They want to know, what can I do? And many of them are their own caregiver because mom is not there.
And that's where the high schools also come in.
Yes.
Because these children are not being parented skillfully, so they don't have good role models. And then in turn, they have children and cannot parent them either. But we can teach them good parenting skills in high school when they don't get it at home.
And grandma's time.
You're okay.
She has raised 2 or 3 levels of,
And may not have the skills either.
Right.
So if we're gonna, so just speaking from an organizing perspective, if we're gonna do something like this, the food aspect
Taken
in the
care of.
parking lot, that's easy. We don't really, that's already, you all at Taste of Grace already have the know-how on that. That's not something that we as a group have to worry about so much. The date, we don't have to worry about. The date's already done. What we need to do is, as a group, I think, is we need to section out different things that people can do. We need some people doing advertising, making a flyer, and doing that kind of stuff. We need a lot of us to be inviting groups like the Cincinnati Police, like Tri-Health. We need people making Moms Demand Action, and the schools. We need people to actually call or to make those connections and invite them to be a part of the event. So if we could clear out the parking lot and put a bunch of tents in the parking lot, then it could be, people could come in and they could get hooked up with these different organizations. So for instance, I could make sure that the Evanston Bulldogs are there. That if people wanted to sign their kids up for a sports program where all the coaches have received trauma-informed care, I could invite Back-to-Back Ministries and Trauma Free World so that they could talk. We could invite Joey Taylor and maybe set up a storytelling booth so that people could go and he sets up this thing and people just go in and on an individual basis can share their story of trauma. And so there are lots of different things. So as you're thinking over the next week or two, what are the people in my network that if we were doing a trauma day, if we were doing this trauma survivors day, who would I call to invite? And then you just tell the group, I think we should call this person, and we say, yeah, let's do it. I think that's the best way to organize, is if we're calling people we know. So Irene, you might, if there's somebody in the UC system that might want to, that would be part of the.
I have a listserv that goes out to about 200 geriatricians each week across the U.S., but I'll include it in that.
Yeah.
Several.
And see if we can invite somebody who might want to help, who might want to give resources to the community that would be willing to sit there for 2 hours or 3 hours to hand out information. I think that's how we can. I think that's almost like a farmer's market of trauma survival.
The Youth Center,
What time?
YWCA. It's a Wednesday, so 5 to 7 was kind of my thought. 7, it's not dark. People want to get home before dark. You wouldn't have the public safety issue at all.
Yeah.
Not that there would be, but just in case.
Yeah, and I'll call our because they, just to let them know that we're, and sometimes the District 2 will show up to these events and do stuff.
Oh.
So, and then it's a great setup, because if people know that they can come here to receive that kind of stuff, and when we do a gun buyback program, they'll be more comfortable.
You don't, okay.
Yeah, number 3 immediately stood out to me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we should definitely move forward with number 1 and do what we can, and maybe that's our learning event where we do it again, bigger and better, but let's do something rather than try to make it perfect. But number 3 really spoke to me. We actually, a couple of years ago, one of our neighbors had a gun stolen from their car at night. And it's just like, it breaks your heart because you know that it was some teenagers, like, just stealing stuff out of cars. And then when you're with a big group of your buddies and there's a gun, like, they took it. So it's like, you know that it's in the wrong hands, right?
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
We can contact the local news stations and at least get this date on their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
We can get a free promotion through the news as well as have news crews show up, and that'll, blast us all over the tri-state area.
Does anybody have contacts with any of the news channels?
I think it's just call them and tell them what you're doing, and I mean, they're always looking for good news, right?
Yeah.
This might be a good news thing.
Yeah.
Crystal in our church,
She does she's marketing person.
she might have some connections too, and some ideas and some resources.
And
Okay.
the Cincinnati Herald.
Great. Awesome. All right, so for now, I'll act as the quarterback because everyone's gotten an email from me, probably. If you haven't gotten an email from me and I don't have your phone number, please make sure you sign up when you, before you leave. So that sounds awesome. So I'll kind of quarterback, and maybe what I'll do is like twice a week, just kind of send out a quick update. Like, hey, this person has contacted this place, and this person, they're going to contact this place, and this is where we are. So it shouldn't be too overwhelming. Okay.
And then do we tell them we're looking to do a gun buyback in the fall? Or something like that? Like,
Yeah. How do you guys feel about?
I think you should feel free to, in your network, invite people to come and set up a booth at this event. Tell them it's May 17th, 5 to 7:30 p.m. There's going to be food, and whoever it is, just make sure Allison knows. Just say these are the people that I would like to invite from my network. Allison says, okay, invite them, and then you make the call, and then tell Allison whether they said the yes or no.
Okay. And then we'll probably have a meeting about a week before, I would think, because there's not that much time before, so I don't want to have a weekly meeting, or I'm way too busy for that, right? We all are. So we'll do a 1 week before checkup to see where we are, and I'll send information out about a date and a time for that. We can kind of maybe I'll do a little survey to see who can make it.
I'll call the Cincinnati Police. I'll make sure the Evanston Community Council knows, and I will. So I'll call the police. I'll make sure Perry knows, and that they can have a booth if they want to. The Evanston Community Council, and then there was one other I was going to call too. I'll remember later.
The other place to make a call to would be the diocesan house, so that information about this and about St. Andrews
Okay.
can go into their network.
Would you be willing to do that legwork on that?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Awesome. Sorry.
Do you think that this is something that the city political structure would be interested in? I mean, you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give Jan Michelle a call.
All right, and somebody on council
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Victoria Parks happens to be my aunt, so I'll be in touch with her.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah,
May 17th, now whatever we're off, it's 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
it's fast.
Yeah, it's a month away.
We'll
Yep.
make some calls tonight.
Okay, and so before we go, I have one last thing, because, thank you, I just can't get it to, okay. You do not have to stay and do this, because I know we're way past time. But I do have some resources for you to be able to take action today. And it's specifically in regards to advocating for common sense gun laws in Ohio. It's advocating for safe firearms storage, and then some other ways that you can take action. So one of the things that Amnesty International is working on, do you mind go ahead and pass them that, that'd be great, is opposing Ohio House Bill 51, because Ohio House Bill 51, which has not been put into law yet, it's still in committee, will make all federal laws unenforceable in Ohio. Meaning, yeah, it's like they passed a similar law in Missouri and it was ruled unconstitutional because clearly, but we are in opposition of this law. It will make it legal for domestic violence abusers to have firearms again, even if they have conviction, among many other things, like banning bump stocks and those kinds of things. It's a really terrible law, just across the board, even if you weren't talking about firearm safety, right? Yeah. Absolutely 100%. Yep. It's terrible. The other thing is repealing HB 51. Back in 2022, Ohio passed Ohio House Bill 99, which allows teachers to have only 24 hours of gun training before they carry a gun in schools, versus 700 hours, which was the previous requirement. So we have more teachers who are able to carry, or staff really, who are able to carry with less training. That is not okay. Passing safe storage laws. There's one passed in the city of Cincinnati. It would be wonderful to see that across the state. And of course, banning assault weapons like AR-15s. Back in March at the virtual event, we heard from Sheriff McGuffey, who is absolutely against assault weapons as a sheriff, you know, here in Hamilton County. So you can message your representatives about that. You can make calls, you can email. I have postcards and Sharpies available up here for writing yours today. And I can show you, I worked with Moms Demand Action on this past Thursday to do this at a postcard writing event. It was really fun. It was at my local coffee shop. We just got together to write our representatives. So this is mine. It's not even like, it's just a piece of paper, right? You write your address and their address, and on the back it's your message. Easy. You fix the postage and you send it. Super easy. Okay, I like that idea. So doing it at the May 17 event. Okay. So I will have postcards up here. If you want to take a sheet home with you, if you want to write it here, because you know once you get home you'll never do it, which would be me, and be like sit on a credenza somewhere for a couple weeks. I, on this sheet, have a link to finding your representatives. When you go to this link, you put in your address, and it tells you everything from your school board all the way up to the president. So, and the addresses and the names to send stuff to.
Could you send both of these out electronically?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I am going to send all the materials that were here today, because there are a lot of people who couldn't make it, even though they really feel on board and they want to help. They just couldn't do it today. So I will send the recording to this, so you can send it to whoever you want, so they can participate too. I will send all the resources. You can also find all of our resources on our website, which is on your agenda. Sorry, there's so many pieces of paper. It's bit.ly/OH Ending Gun Violence Cincy Action Team. So everything here is available on the website. I will also email it to you so you have it there and you can easily send it on to friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, people you like, people you don't like, you know.
And you're now on the Cincinnati
That's right, absolutely. And then the last part on here is advocating for safe firearm storage. Not everyone is into advocating for laws, and that's okay. One thing we can all get on board with is keeping our kids safe. Kids are more likely to accidentally, unintentionally discharge a firearm if it doesn't have a gun lock. Everyone from like the NRA down is advocating for safe gun storage. There are so many new gun owners who don't know how to do that. They don't know it's available. They don't know they can get it from their police department. Maybe they're uncomfortable going there. But all the firearm safety resources are right here on this link here, along with a list of free gun lock locations in Ohio. So I made this list of free gun locks from the Cincinnati Police Department's website and the Hamilton County Police. I reformatted it because it was just all over the place and I couldn't just give you a piece of paper. Now it's all here. But I found that you can go to Project Child Safe and anywhere in the nation and see where you can get it in your neighborhood. So that's there too. And then, of course, down at the bottom, there are other ways that you can take action. And the last thing that I want to make sure to hand out to you guys, we need more help. We need people who are just like you, who are ready to take action, ready to collaborate, work holistically from all different angles of this. Thanks, Ma. And so if you can take home that paper, even if you get one person to say they're interested, everybody who I've talked to pretty much has said, yes, I'm on board, I want more information. How can I help? I have ideas, you know? So there's a lot of people out there, you just have to make the first step, which today you guys took today. Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much to Allison.
Oh my gosh.